Next up, we have the author of the book Unfinished Stories, Mr. Hassan Raza Changezi. Now, for him and for a couple of more, there will be a video presentation that is pre-made, so we get to see him speak here. And then right after this, he will be online so that we can speak to him.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hassan Raza Changezi, the author of the book Unfinished Stories, A Tale of Hazara Genocide in Pakistan. Before embarking on the introduction of the book, I would like to welcome and thank you all for joining me today. I thank my colleagues in Bolaq Analysts Network and my friends in Katib Cultural Association for their endeavors in organizing this momentous event that provided me the opportunity to listen and talk to you. The book contains 30 articles, mostly written between 2013 and 2015. It was a horrific period when the Hazara genocide was at its peak in Quetta. Almost every day there was tragic news of the killing of some Hazaras somewhere in Balochistan. The victims included all segments of society: men, women, children, coal miners, vegetable vendors, traders, students, teachers, and sportsmen. In this book, you will find the stories of victims who did not know what their crime was. If they knew anything, it was that they were Hazara, a community that could be easily distinguished by their Mongoloid facial features from the rest of the population predominantly living in Afghanistan and Pakistan. I know I'm not a good speaker, but you can definitely call me a good storyteller. I have so many stories to tell, but unfortunately, most of these stories do not have happy endings. Unfinished Stories is again a collection of such stories that doesn't have a pleasant ending. The systematic and targeted killings of Hazaras in Pakistan started in 1999. But after 9/11, when jihadi groups in Afghanistan started returning to Pakistan, an unending series of Hazara genocide began in a highly organized manner, which continued for the next 18 years. According to confirmed sources, more than 158 terrorist attacks were carried out against Hazaras in Quetta, in which about 2,000 men, women, and children were killed, and around 3,500 were seriously maimed and injured. Unfinished Stories tells a few stories of these victims. The book tells the stories of people who left home to earn a living for their children, but returned home in coffins. It tells you stories of students killed on their way to schools, colleges, and universities. In the book, you will come across some gruesome attacks on Hazaras, who on multiple occasions were separated from their fellow passengers, identified, and were shot dead. The book contains stories of mothers who collected the remains of their children in a plastic bag, killed in bomb blasts. In this book, there is also the story of the father whose son's grave has his picture on it, but the grave is empty, because no part of his son's body could be found for burial after an explosion. In this book, there are also painful stories of those who were paralyzed for their whole life after being injured in bomb blasts. The book also contains stories of women who sat on the roads with the dead bodies of their loved ones for days and nights in sub-zero temperature, demanding the government to bring the perpetrators to justice. There are also stories of those government officials who never showed seriousness to bring to justice the terrorists involved in the persecution of Hazaras. The book also contains stories of children who used to ask their parents what their crime was, the stories of those who are forced to leave their homeland, their friends, and their family to seek refuge in Western countries, and also the stories of those who left their homes in search of peace but could never reach their destination because their boat drowned in the sea or they were buried in a snowstorm. There are similar stories in this book, and none have a happy ending. In this book, I have tried to explain how members of Hazara community felt when the government, instead of taking action against the terrorists, erected high walls around the Hazara ghettos, further isolating them under the pretext of providing them protection. In the book, I have tried to highlight the plight of those students who were forced to abandon their education, the entrepreneurs who left their businesses, and the plight of those children and women who lost their loved ones in the last 2 decades. The role of Pakistani media has also been discussed in Unfinished Stories, which used to broadcast comedy shows instead of raising voices in favor of community under continuous attacks. In this book, you will also get to read some satire, but even in these satires, many stories will be found hidden. These stories are not fiction. These occurrences occurred in front of my eyes, in my neighborhood, in my city, and in my country, which I felt with immense intensity. This book was written in the Urdu language, but our friends wanted it to be translated into English so that the more people can feel the pain that we have felt in our bodies and souls for almost 2 decades. Here, I would like to thank Habib Payman and the ICA Fund which funded publication of this book. Most importantly, this book would never have been completed without the support of some dedicated volunteers. I would like to thank them. I would like to thank Sajjad Changezi, Zahra Shah, Sayyid Inayat, Asad Khan Baitani, Muhammad Atif, Muhammad Yunus, Abbas Changezi, and Akram Gizabi, who volunteered much of their time to translate the stories. My special thanks go to Sajjad Changezi and Zahra Shah for devoting much of their time to read and edit the work of their peers and compiled the book. Thank you, Sajjad Changezi. Thank you, Zahra Aghe. And thank you all. I'm also grateful to Dr. Fatima Hashmi, Dr. Arif Sahar, Farman Kakar, and Sajjad Asim for writing their reviews on the book. I'm grateful to Sayyid Muhammad Hussain for designing a splendid title, and thank you Asif Ali Muhammad for providing photo for the title cover. Once again, thank you all for being with me at this beautiful event. Have a good day.
But I think we'll just move on to the next panel session. So if you guys just keep hanging on. Then I would like to invite our moderator for the next panel session about the reviewers and the translators of the book, Mr. Ashraf Bakhteyari. If you could come up, and then we'll start the next session, please. And also real short, Mr. Bakhteyari is Executive Director in Afghanistan Forensic Science Organization. So the floor is yours. Give him a round of applause.
خانم‌ها و آقایان سلام و روز همه شما بخیر. Welcome to the book launch and Hazara Genocide archive. My name is Muhammad Ashraf Bakhteyari. I am the Executive Director of the Afghanistan Forensic Science Organization. Now I am here to perform as moderator. در پنل ما جناب آقای حسین رضا چنگیزی، آقای قادر نایل و آقای دکتر صاحب یحیی بایزا و آقای عنایت بلخی، زهرا شاه و همینطور آقای سجاد چنگیزی حضور دارن. اگرچه یک تعدادشان حالا اینجا تشریف دارن، یک تعدادشان آنلاین با ما و شما وصل خواهند شد، اما یک تعداد دیگه از اونا فقط اسپیچ خود برای ما فرستادن. First of all, I ask my technical colleague to play the speech of Ms. Zahra Shah.
Good evening and assalamu alaikum everyone. I pay my regards to all the honorable guests who are present in today's function to celebrate the launching ceremony of the book Unfinished Stories, Tale of Hazara Genocide in Pakistan. Before I proceed further, I would like to congratulate the Katib Cultural Association and Bolaq Analysts Network for successfully arranging today's function and for funding the translation and publication of the book Unfinished Stories. My thanks go to everyone who had a role to play during this translation journey, from editing to writing, a review and printing process. Unfinished Stories is the English translation of Hassan Raza Changezi's book, Qissa-Hai Natamam, which is a collection of essays, short stories, newspaper articles and blogs. Hassan Raza Changezi is a writer and a political activist, does not need an introduction. He has always played an active role in raising his voice against our killings. Through his writings, and particularly through the essays in this book, he portrays the plight of our community and captures the stories of our genocide. These stories make part of our painful history and make us who we are today, where we stand, and in what direction we are heading as a community. Reasons that led us to translate this book are multifaceted. The first, and by far the most important one, is a personal one. My own interest in this project grew stronger as my kids grew older. As a parent, you know that the older they grow, the more inquisitive they become. From simple questions of self and being to identity issues to even more complex and rational ones, such as why are we, the Hazaras, always the targets of terrorism? And who are these people who want to kill us? To which we have no satisfactory answer. Or even if we do, we find it hard to explain for multiple reasons. So this book, Unfinished Stories, offers some help to answer those questions to a certain degree. It provides us with explanations that can help to satisfy those inquisitive minds to some extent. It can also serve as a bridge to connect them to their community, their heritage and their culture. So in future, if they are in a position, they should be able to know when, where, and how to contribute positively to the well-being of their community. Another equally important reason for translating this book was that I wanted these stories to travel to other parts of the world, touch people's mind and hearts, be heard and be remembered. During our translation journey, we did, of course, faced some challenges, as this was our first experience. Like all the first attempts, this too came with some sort of disappointment and frustrations. But I'm glad we rose above those challenges and were able to complete the project. And I really hope that this book, Unfinished Stories, conveys the same message the author, Hassan Raza Changezi, wanted us to convey. The message is loud and clear, that we as a community stayed strong in the face of violence, unjust treatment and prejudice. And that during that horrific period when our genocide was on its peak, we lost everything, but we didn't lose hope. Thank you.
Thanks to Ms. Zahra Shah for her wonderful speech. Now, we heard the speech of Mr. Yahia Baiza. First of all, please introduce yourself briefly and then present your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Yahia Baiza. I'm a research associate at the Awahan Center, the Institute of Ismaili Studies in London, United Kingdom. I'm also Bloomsbury Education and Childhood Studies regional editor for Afghanistan and a senior member of Hazara National Congress. In 1999, Lashkar-e Jangawi, who has already established itself and its cells in Punjab and in Sindh, sends Bengals, or Churi that we say in Afghanistan as well as in Urdu, to their compatriots in Quetta to shame them for not being brave enough to launch attacks on who they think deserve to be killed and massacred. This is the story number 31, and the last story of the unfinished stories. If Mr. Hassan Raza Changezi is online and can hear me, I would like to congratulate him personally on the publication of his book, and we are happy here to celebrate the book itself, but of course, unfortunately, we are not able to celebrate what is going on in the content of his book. Myself, being a writer and publisher, there is not a greater kind of happiness and sense of satisfaction than having one's book published and then being celebrated in a book launch and then being reviewed. And today, my review of these unfinished stories has two parts. One is about the content of the book itself, and then my own critic of the book. When I say critic, I mean critic, not criticism. The book has got 31 stories, and I had the pleasure to read it from cover to cover. As I mentioned, the first story, which was the last story that I mentioned, but the first story itself in the book starts with a kind of nostalgia or nostalgic memories of how Mr. Raza Changezi himself remembers his childhood in the city of Quetta, that while he was in his early childhood, they actually didn't have any kind of conversation or sectarian dialogue about who is Shia or who is Sunni, and at that time none of these things existed the way he experiences later on in his life. And that's how the unfinished stories starts in the book, which is a collection of stories that Mr. Changezi himself wrote at different points of time from 2013 to 2015. And of course, at the time when he wrote these stories and published in Urdu in different newspapers in Pakistan, mostly Dawn, obviously he didn't mean to, at that time, to write it like a kind of a historic book of records of history in a sense. Therefore, when you read the book, you don't see the dates when these events happened, and it is here that we have to really thank the translators who have done an excellent job, not only translating the language culturally into English, which I really loved and was a pleasure to read it, but also adding to that annotated footnotes. And if it was for that annotated footnotes, I wouldn't be able to pinpoint when the story actually was written. And those annotated footnotes actually helps a lot. It does a kind of annotated research, and it adds to the value of the book itself. And as I mentioned, the book has almost half of the book itself are satirical points that the author makes. And the first one is Sultan Rahi's Pakistan. And if you look at the Sultan Rahi's Pakistan is kind of what the author wants to say, that a kind of a fake image. He tries to enter the kind of state of Pakistan through this Sultan Rahi's story or the Sultan Rahi's films in Pakistan, who is like kind of a superhero. And Mr. Changezi writes that what kind of fake promises are in these stories, and that's how he connects society of Pakistan and the state of Pakistan. So on the one hand, you have a society of Pakistan, which are the people and including the Hazaras, and you have on the other hand the state of Pakistan, which make fake promises to the public. And here he names that Mr. 420, Mr. Charles the Beast. 420, if you are aware of the Mr. 420, this has a very interesting story out of itself. So basically, Mr. Changezi is saying that the state of Pakistan makes fake promises. It's like a Mr. 420 that tries to deceive its own people. And it's exactly, that's how the whole stories here revolve. That on the one hand, you have the Hazara society who are subject to genocidal attacks by the state of Pakistan, by extremist group. But on the other hand, the state does not provide enough security for the people who is supposed to be protected. And as story moves on, then it questions that as who we are as a citizen of the country, that on the one hand you have the Pakistan as the government, the establishments, the institutions, and the other hand murderers, mass killers run away freely and without any fear of being prosecuted. So, and it is here that Mr. Changezi in the story number 4 asks that what is the sins of us, we Hazaras, what sins we committed that neither the government protect us nor the basic idea of the Pakistan itself, that is an Islamic fortress, an Islamic state. So how come that we are Muslims and the Pakistani government state that is founded on the basis of idea of Islam itself and being kind of portrayed as the nucleus, kind of nuclear bomb country, and being a Muslim country and the idea of Muslimhood itself, but yet Muslims are not protected in this state. And he, of course, refers to other minorities as well, especially the Christians and the others. And that's how he is going to, with his another piece of excellent satirical story, that then if that's the case, that we are not protected, let us change the constitution of Pakistan from the Republic of Pakistan to what the Taliban would love to have it as Imarat-e Islami Pakistan. But he even goes further with his satirical piece, and then he says that then it's better to have it Dawlatul Imaratul al-Pakistani al-Muttahida al-Islamiyya, and to have the name of change the name of the cities, like we have Islamabad, we have Faisalabad. Let us change the name of other cities as well, so that it can really fit into the kind of the format or the idea of how these extremists have taken control of the country. And it's really very beautiful satirical pieces that Mr. Changezi is writing in this book. I'm not going to, because of the shortage of time, through all these narratives that at some point story number 16 that says that Pakistan is a dead nation. And dead nation doesn't mean that people don't live there, but nation means a dead nation, a nation that cannot think freely, cannot think critically enough. The state cannot think, cannot act responsibly enough. So in that sense, you have a nation that actually dead. You have a nation that one group of people, the Hazaras, are dying, and the other don't feel share sympathy. And if you look into the way how this book continues with these stories, and as I mentioned, the last story, story 31, the unfinished stories, that how these attacks starts in Pakistan on the Hazaras from year 2000 and until the time of the writing of the stories finishes in 2015. Now, since there's not much time for me to go into further details of these stories, now I would like to have my own a little bit of critique of the book itself. As I mentioned earlier, so the book was not I mean, when the stories were written and published in the newspapers, they were not meant to become a book at the time. It was rather the kind of Mr. Changezi's own feeling and responsibility to write about this event. And of course, these stories contain some important information, but this information have never meant to be used in some kind of legal cases in the future or now, but rather it was kind of the pain that he was feeling, and he wanted to kind of steam it out and also share it with the wider public. And I think it is, the book itself is very educational, particularly for people who have not lived in the country or do not live in the country, and particularly people who can access it through the language of English. And as Mr. Changezi himself wrote in the beginning, it's meant to be hopefully one day in the future. We don't know how long in an unknown future that the Hazaras in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in Denmark, in Australia, in America, somewhere in the world, the future generation of Hazaras will have to learn that how the ancestors, how their fathers and great-fathers have gone through what kind of challenges. So hopefully that will become a reality, and hopefully, as Mr. Richard Bennett has shared his own personal story, how his family were forced to out-migrate from their land in Europe, where they have come to the United Kingdom and then to New Zealand. So the similar story is the stories of the Hazaras of Afghanistan, Hazaras of Pakistan, who were originally the Hazaras of Afghanistan, and hopefully that this book and similar debates will educate other members of society. From me, it is more important for the other members of society rather than the Hazaras themselves. It is the others who have to be educated. It is others who have to work hard within their communities so that these type of events should not happen in the future. I think there are a lot to talk about this, but given the time that is limited, I put a full stop here, and thank you very much.
Many thanks to Mr. Baiza for his wonderful presentation. Now we heard a speech of Mr. Sajjad Changezi. His presentation is on the Hazara genocide in Pakistan. So I ask my technical colleague to play the...
Hello, ladies and gentlemen who are gathering in this event in Copenhagen, Denmark today. I send you greetings from Islamabad, Pakistan. Honorable political leaders who have been engaged with us, who have stood beside us as the Friends of the Hazaras, leaders of the civil society organizations, my fellow human rights activists and researchers, and equally important, fellow Hazara community members from different societies and time zones, my brothers and sisters, Lala and Aghi as we call, and juniors and seniors, I say to each one of you, salam. To begin with, I congratulate Katib Association in Denmark and Bolaq Analysts Network for putting things together and organizing this event today in the Danish capital. And not only organizing this event today, but beyond it, the whole translation and publishing project for this book, and also the celebration of the 1st October as the Hazara Solidarity Day. As a member of Pakistan's Hazara community, I reiterate that the message is loud and clear that we, the Hazaras, may be divided across different political boundaries and time zones, but there is a part of our collective memory and that part of our brain tells us that we bled together, that we suffered together, and this special connection puts us together not only today but every other day as well. I also take this opportunity to congratulate Hassan Raza Changezi Sahib on this publishing of the English version of his book Qissa-Hai Natamam, which came up in Urdu, and now it's being translated and published in English as The Unfinished Stories. I was given this opportunity to speak on behalf of the translators. So to begin with, I admit I was not alone in this project, and Miss Zahra Shah of UK served as the co-lead translator in this project. But both of us were also supported by Muhammad Atif, Abbas Changezi, Muhammad Yunus, and one special Asad Khan Bitani from Job, Pashtun community from Job and Balochistan, Pakistan. I'll speak about key features of this book. So this is a collection of the articles published in different media outlets around 2009, 10, 11, 12 by Hassan Raza Sahib, who stood up and stepped up as a voice of resistance. So through these articles, Hassan Sahib registered his protest against the genocidal violence that Hazara community in Pakistan faced, and I particularly, because of that reason, I believe these perspectives, these voices, these articles needed to reach far, audience, wider audience, especially across times and land. So we felt it was important to translate this book from Urdu into another language which reaches wider audience, and also across time. So our future generations would want to know what were the factors and how were the living conditions, what factors challenged the Hazara community in Pakistan in the initial 2 decades of the 21st century. With that, I also want to read a section from the translator's note that's in the book. It's about the book. In the face of genocidal violence that Hazara population in Quetta, Pakistan have faced during the last 2 decades, and which peaked around 2009 to 2014, these articles of Hassan Raza Sahib are documents of historical importance. The essays in this collection are for our next generations, who we all hope are privileged enough to breathe and grow up in safer times and societies, so that when they are bothered to dig, they can learn about the battles their forefathers and foremothers fought. If these stories travel that far, it would mean we have not given up. If we have not given up, it means we cannot have lost. So this is a paragraph I read from the translator's note, but also summing up in other words, our team of translators has only attempted to take the narration of Hassan Raza Sahib's protest and against the painful Quetta incidents to a wider audience across time and space. So maybe 50 years from now, a granddaughter of ours, a Pakistani history scholar or a human rights researcher, will be sipping a cup of coffee in safe and cozy spaces in a library somewhere, maybe in Sydney or Copenhagen or Karachi, and through these articles he or she will realize it was not easy to be a Hazara and live through 2012 to 15 in Quetta, Pakistan. In the end, I again thank everyone behind this project, all the contributors, and again congratulate the organizers and Hassan Raza Sahib. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Mr. Sajjad Changezi for his excellent presentation. Now I have a question from Mr. Nail. Has it been determined who is behind the killing of Hazaras in Pakistan? If it is known, have they been tried and punished by the judicial system or authorities of Pakistan?
Thank you so much. Actually, I was not told to be the part of this panel, and I'm really sorry that I cannot express my view in English very well. So please allow me to speak in my mother language. تشکر از سرشتگری از این نوربند برنامه و که مرا دومنه باور کسته موقع ده که ما یک بلوک گپایی که دارم از کویتا از پاکستان قدر قنجقشمو شریک بسازم
اتفاقا از امیر که گفته شد که از 1999 به بعد وقتی که هزاران نسل کشی در بین پاکستان شروع میشه، راجع به سوالی جناب دمی دوران 20 سال یا از او قدرتر ما می‌گردیم که حسن رضا چنگیزی و امیر هم کسته هرچ قصد که ادبا و شعرا یا فرهنگیونی که ما داشتیم دمی دوران ادب که تخلیق شده هم کسته از خاطر ازی که هزاران نسل کشی چره شده، از مظلومیت و محرومیت و محکومیت از ما شعر و شاعری شده، غزل نوشته شده، هنرمندی شده در شکل محفل موسیقی و مو کس داد و فریاد کده توسط دنبوری خو، توسط شاعری خو و امیر رقم توسط رقم نوشتارایی که حسن رضا چنگیزی امروز کس ما میگرنی که بعد از اردو کتابی ترجمه انگلیسی شم کس روی دروی از مواسط. تا جایی که سوال است که چرا از راز داشت داری است و در خصوصا در بین پاکستان باید موسون دوری تاریخ بریم. دوستای از ما استادای از ما در این ششته یعنی شسته به اصطلاح فارسی دکتر حسین الیاسا، اسحاق محمدی، لطیف اکبری، سفری اوماغ که موکستا یک جریان را مسلسل قنجرش قطعی بودیم وقتی که ما در بین اتحادیه محصلین هزاره من HSF بودیم. داستان از اونجا شروع میشه وقتی که در بین دو همسایه ملک پاکستان انقلابات میاد در آخر دهه 70 در بین افغانستان و در بین ایران. بس ما می‌گنیم که تحولات در بین پاکستان هم شروع میشه. به طور خاص وقتی که در بین ایران انقلاب میاد بس در بین پاکستان تحولات در زی بنیاد شروع میشه که ولایت فقیه میخواه خود را تیت کنه از بین پاکستان و سندوری مشرقی وسطا و سندوری افغانستان و گردوشه. بس در اینجا که حزب جور میشه در نام نفاذ فقهی جعفریه در بین پاکستان و بعدا ما می‌گردیم که رقیبی تاریخی از او در شکل سعودی عرب چون سرمایه کاری یا پراکسی وارز در بین پاکستان جریان داره و در بین هر کشور جریان داره. ما می‌گردیم که در شکل سپاه صحابه یک حزب در مقابل تحریک نفاذ فقهی جعفریه جور میشه و بعدا این حزب سندوری یک بخشی متشدد هم جور منه که ما میگنیم سپاه محمد و بعدا که سپاه صحابه که لشکر جنگی یعنی یک جنگی فرقه‌ای که آغاز شد در بین پاکستان بعد از انقلاب ایران آغاز میشه و مردم پاکستان در جنگی عرب و ایران کشته شده مورد سرمایه کاری است. تا یک وقت را این جنگ ها در بین پنجاب ولایت پنجابی پاکستان و بعدا بسیار دیر بعد که منتقل میشه در ولایت بلوچستان در بین کویته و دغول در مینا ما یک مثال چی میگیم در 1986 وقتی که 6 جولای سانحه‌اش یا فاجعه‌اش ظهور پذیر میشه در اونجا مردم شیعه آذرا دستگیر میشه قنجقه ارتش یا قنجقه پلیسی پاکستان در بین کویته شهر که تمام روز را کسته مردم آذری کویته دوچاری مشکل است از خاطر از سانحه یا از خاطر از فاجعه. در بین پنجاب وقتی که درگیری فرقه‌ای میشه در شکل شیعه سنی مختصر میشه در اونجا در دوری 1992 یا 93 است دوری صدر اعظم نواز شریف دوران کسته یک سیاسی حل برای پیدا منه و کوشش منه که پنجاب را محفوظ کنه پنجابی‌ها را محفوظ کنه و این جنگ را کسته بکشن از بین پنجاب سندوری کیپی خیبر پختونخوا یا سندوری کویته. از او بعد ما میگنیم که جنگ‌های فرقه‌ای در بین کویته آغاز میشه. وقتی که ما اول تذکره هزاره ایسترن فدریشن یا HSF را کردم این همون وقت است که انقلاب ایران مایا و ما میگنیم سرمایه‌کاری زود شکل ISO امامی ایسترن ارگانیزیشن و در شکل یعنی یک دور ترقی پسنده یک دور که انتها پسنده یا شدتگرها این جنگ در بین جامعه کویته از روز اول آغاز میشه بعد از انقلاب ایران و از او بعد وقتی که از پنجاب منتقل مشت جنگی فرقی و تبیم روز را کستا جامعه آزاد بین کویتا به شدت دو سمت تقسیم است از وقتی که هزاره ایسترن فدریشن اتحادیه موصلین هزاره تنظیم نسل و هزاره مغول جنگ دست چنگیزی فرقی گرایا و امیم روز کستا توالا در شکل هزاره دموکراتیک پارتی وقتی که ما جریانی تسلسل که پیش برداری هستیم هم کستا امی دو فکر وجود داره در بین پاکستان یا در بین کویتا شاه امی جریانی که وقتی فرقه جنگ در بین پاکستان در بین کویتا انتقال داده شد از او بابات در 2003 و 2004 وقتی که هزاره دموکراتیک پارتی در وجود آمد امزو رستا آخری 2018 کستا ما در حال تظاهرات بودیم مو کدام روز نبوده که مو سرکای کویتا شهر را بند کردیم مو مسلسل تظاهرات مسلسل جلسه و جلوس و بعدا در اسلام آباد رفتیم و از او بابت آخر مجبور شدیم که من در سخنرانی تاریخ تذکره کردیم که در 2011 مو ورلد واید قوما رو گفتیم که باید مور کمک کنین شما هزار دیاسپورا را که ای کس از دیس از مو بور است باید شما کمکگر از مو جور شین و اونمزو بابت قوم آخری لوزای مسته امزو بابت وقتی که مو به حیثیت یک حزب داخلی جریانی حکومتی شدیم اولین شرط از ما این بود که اگر مردمی آذری کویتا یا پاکستان را شما تحفظ داده میتونین پس مو کس در بین حکومت شامل شده میتونی شامل میشی اگر نه بس مو کس شاید شامل نشنی و اینالی هزاره دموکراتیک پارتی نماینده آذری کویتا پاکستان تنسته که در بین اسمبلی در بین هر جریانی که از حواله سرنوشتی بلوچستان کویتا اگو سرسرشته مشد در بین از دو کستا آذرا به حیثیت اچ دی پی کستا صحیح مستا و مو کستا در هر دادگاه در هر فورم کستا ای وقت کستا رسایی داریم و میتونیم که تحفظی مردم اخرى کستا داگو صورت کریم بس شکر از فضل خدا ما منگرنیم که در پسین بعد که ما در بین حکومت آمدیم 2018 بابات یک بدون سانحه مچ کدام دیگه گو سانحه یا فاجعه رخ نداده دیگه هزاره دموکراتیک پارتی چون در بین حکومت است و حصه حکومت است ما کوشش کرده هستیم که امی رقم بیغامی و امن کسا بلده مردمی از ما که ما محروم بوده شی تاول شون سلامت باشه
بسیار تشکر بسیار تشکر از آقای نایل. Now we hear the speech of Mr. Farman Kakar, who is one of the book reviewer. So I ask my technical colleague to play.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Farman Kakar. I have had the privilege and honor of being one of a few editors who edited the English version of the book titled Unfinished Stories, written by Hassan Raza Changezi Sahab. Hassan Raza Changezi Sahab has already published the Urdu version of his work by the name of Qissa Yahia Na Tamam. I had the honor of having the copy of that book as well, which is one of the best books written on the Hazara killings in Balochistan in Urdu. This book, The Unfinished Stories, is its English version. I was asked by the respected Changezi Sahab to comment on his book. So, what could be the critique of this book? First of all, the strengths of this book. The very first strength of this book is it is a victim's narrative by the victim for the wider audience that includes not only people in Pakistan, Afghanistan, but also the world around. So this is a victim's narrative. It is the first strength of this book. Second strength of this book is this book doesn't divide the content into binaries. It is not an oversimplified version of the facts. surrounding the Hazara killing in Quetta city mainly, and Balochistan in the general context. Rather, this study understands the complexity of the problem of the Hazara killing in Balochistan. Look, for example, it does not only hold the failure of the state to provision security to its citizens. Rather, this work also sheds light on the proxy conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which is one of the reasons why there has been Hazara killing in Quetta city and also in Balochistan. Thirdly, and that's I think something very new from the author, that is the Hazara's upward mobility is in itself a problem for some people, that there are sections of people who believe why the Hazaras are having this upward mobility. So that has become one of the reasons why Hazara get killed in Balochistan and in Quetta city. So the author has a complex understanding of the problem. He does not have this oversimplified version of the events. The third main strength of this book, which deals with the sectarian conflict waged primarily in Quetta city and Balochistan, and that strength is it is a primary work. Primary work and primary contribution to the scholarship. This is a work in which the author is a primary witness to the incidents of violence that happened around him. In his mature mind, he is not somebody who is emotionally human being in his teen age, who is emotional, emotions got reflected in the writings. No, he is a rational human being in his 40s who has this understanding, complex understanding of the events happening around him. So that's the third main the primary strength of this book is. What could be the weakness of this book? I think, to be honest, one hardly finds any weakness of this work. If there could be any weakness of this work by Hassan Raza Changezi Saab, then it is that the work is a journalistic studies. It is not something academic. It is not something, it's not a work anchored in a research theoretical framework. But that weakness is in itself a strength at the same time, because every journalistic study provides a base for an academic work. So anybody who has interest in investigating the sectarian conflict in Balochistan will find the work of Hassan Raza Changezi Saab insightful and worth quoting in any academic work. So in the end, I would strongly recommend anyone who has any interest to study and read the book Unfinished Story of Hassan Raza Changezi Sahab. It is written in a lucid prose manner. Hassan Raza Changezi Sahab is an author who is well established in Quetta city, not only among his own nation, Hazara nation, but also the wider people of Balochistan. So I wish him and his work best of luck. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Many thanks to Mr. Farman Kakar for his excellent presentation. Now I have a question from Mr. Baiza. Has any national or international organization documented the genocide of Hazaras in Pakistan? If yes, which organizations? In addition, have you presented the case of Hazara Genocide to the International Criminal Court? If yes, what was the result? If not, why haven't you actually? Thank you.
Well, I mean, I'm not kind of titled to really answer the question in that way because I'm not involved with any investigative groups documenting the Hazara genocidal attacks on the Hazaras of Pakistan or of Afghanistan. I am not personally involved in any of those kind of research or activities. I do know that there have been documentations in both countries about these genocidal attacks, and some has been published as well in Persian. But at a very at the level of really an entry, like for in an encyclopedia, not more than 800 words or maximum 1,000 words. And as I gave a suggestion during the first panel, that I made my own recommendations that it is not enough. If you want to make a legal case, it's not enough to rely all your hopes just in presenting and in documenting these events in these genocidal attacks. It's not enough because these are legal matters and these are legal cases, and it has a lot of complex and complicated political processes. If you want to have an echo, if you want to have a reflection, if you want to the international community, the nation states, groups, whoever are responsible, come up with some kind of responses. Please make scholarly contributions to the debate. Elevate, raise the entire debate at a scholarly, at an intellectual level. And I gave a suggestion of Raphael Lemkin, who wrote this Axis in Occupied Europe, is an excellent work. Also, as Mr. Richard Bennett mentioned, Hirsch, his name I just forgot this, who wrote the Crime Against Humanity, who was a British barrister. And actually this work of Lemkin that really made enormous contribution to bringing Nazi era and those who were responsible for that to the Nuremberg tribunal, and as well as the case of the recognition of the genocidal attacks on the Jewish communities as well as on the Polish communities. Unless the Hazaras do not undertake a similar kind of work, I don't see personally much hope in just what these events have been recorded. And on the record of these events itself, I cannot say anything about how good they are, whether they do match and meet the kind of view and expectations of the international, what's called the crime court, ICC. So this also altogether is a different debate. But myself as an intellectual, as a writer, and as a scholar, as a researcher, I strongly recommend building a network, building a group of scholars who really can elevate this entire debate and make publications. There is no fear about it. You don't need to write the name of people, but make comparative studies, make a deep kind of analysis of the situation, add literature review, and make publications. And unless we don't do that, it won't create a big kind of responses. And we have to do that and make sure that it's published in respected publications in Europe, in the United States. There are many. I personally have a good relationship with big publishers like Bloomsbury and others. So, but it's a painstaking work. You need to raise some funding, and it's a lot of work behind that. But scholarly work is really the one which I recommend. Thank you.
بسیار تشکر. از اینکه وقت کم داریم و فقط از آقای نایل یک سوال مونم و او سوال ماییه که در پاکستان قومای زیاد زندگی مونه، هزارها یکی از او قومایه و این هزارها هم که مردم با فرهنگ، سلطلب و متمدن هستند و نه برای پاکستان، امنیت پاکستان و نه برای امنیت منطقه خطرناک است. پس چرا مردم آذر در پاکستان کشته میشن؟ وقت کم داریم، فقط
نه یه خود میخواستم یک من پیشتر داستانی که برایشون بیان کردم که عرب ایرانی نشنالیزم وقتی که جنگی تاریخی عرب و عجم مایا بعد از انقلاب ایران در بین پاکستان بس جنگ فرقه‌ای داخل پاکستان شروع میشه. ما دوچاری جنگ فرقه‌ای هستیم در بین پاکستان و چون یک مونگولایت فیس داریم شناخته میشیم، سافت تارگت هستیم، از این خاطر در بین کویتا شارک هستیم ما زیاد زده شدیم. و دوم ایه که در بین جامعه کویتا آذر کویتا سرمایه کاری شده است، سرمایه کاری شده است در شکل مختلف. برنامه هایی که سال 12 ماه در بین جامعه کویتا که جامعه کویتا آذر کویتا را سندوری انتها پسندی و شدت پسندی و سندوری عقب نشینی ببره، بلدی از این که ضروری است که سوشال سایکولوژی مردم را که آدم بدل کنه، بین از که مرد سوسایتی خود جامعه خود تربیت کنه، در بین از که متاسفانه اونایی که روشن فکر است، اونایی که روشن گرا است، اونایی که مترقی است یا ترقی پسند است، اونا ضرورتی هزار دیاسپورا را داره که کمکگر از اینا باشه تا که و جنگی که در بین جامعه آذر کویتا شده است، جنگ فکری او که باید ختم شونه. اینا شما گفتین ما اگر اینا در دیتیل بریم بسیار گپ است که هزارها چرچ داشت. یعنی مو لاک ها پشتون که در بین وزیرستان و در بین سندور کپی زده داشت، هزارها بلوچا که در بین بلوچستان زده داری است که خونده سرزمین است و درو که یعنی جنگ که در است، جنگ آزادی که است و هزارها نفر از اونها که بس لای اردو غایب است، ناپدید است. اینالی در بین از یک جامعه که ما دوچاری هزار رقم مشکلات هستیم، زدونی ازمو که در بین از او است جنگای فرقه‌ای، اونایی که فایده ش بوده، اونایی که سرمایه کار بوده، اونایی که سهولت کار جور کرده، در بین از جنگ است اتفاقا که است موزده شد. مشکلی است و مسئله است که اینالی جامعه را از این بدبختی چه رقم شما که محفوظ میتونین، جامعه کویتا را، جامعه آذر را که چه رقم که شما امن و امان و حفظ میتونین، امن و امان تول شده میتونین، حفظ میتونین. بلدی از این که از گذشته 40-50 سال جنگ در بین جامعه آذر شده است. از یک دوره مرقم گفتم که یک انتها پسند، یک شدت پسند طرز فکر وجود داره در بین جامعه کویتا که از همسایه ملک است مختلف مفکوره و مختلف قنجه مختلف برنامه ما سرمایه کاریش داره در بین جامعه آذر. از دیگه دور ضروری است که کارهای فرهنگی خوره، کارهای اجتماعی خوره و کارهای ترقی پسندی و روشن فکری خوره پیش ببریم. اگر ما اگر ما که در دیتیل بریم بسیاری گپا است که چرا زدش داری استیم و دویم نه آذر شیعه چیز کار کرده است، شیعه آذر که چیز کار کرده است که اونا خود اول شیعه میگه بعدن آذر میگه، اونا که مفکوره از اونا که عکس العمل از اونا در مطابق دیگه اقوامی که ما خصوصا در بین کویتا که زندگی مونیم بسیار کم است و این اتفاقا امو مفکوره است و مفکوره که بلیش سرمایه کاری شده است و اینی باعث مشکلات مردم آذر کویتا که در بین جامعه آذر کویتا در پیدا شده است.
بسیار تشکر از اینکه جناب بلخی صاحب هم با ما و شما وصل شده. ایشان هم کوردیناتور و مترجم کتاب بوده. اگر در این مورد فکر نکنم که حالی وقت کافی داشته باشیم که هم میگیم ما ازش سوال بکنیم، اما فقط ما برایشان یک خوش آمدید عرض میکنم و میگم که چگونه برنامه را اینا مدیریت کردن، چگونه هماهنگی ها صورت گرفت با اینکه بسیاری از همکارایشان در کشورهای مختلف وجود داشت و چی چالش هایی را اینا با خود داشتن. جناب بلخی صاحب اگر در حد 2-3 دقیقه برای ما توضیح بدید ممنون میشیم.
من کوشش کنم که به انگلیسی بگم تا تمام.
بسیار خوب است.
I was waiting to get into this conference through the link, but that was somehow working, and I really apologize that I could not be actually with you sitting there and celebrating this event all together. Yes, I was actually working as a coordinator of this trip. It was actually an accidental responsibility that came on me, and then Hassan Raza actually asked me to coordinate the team and do a bit of work. Yes, I know all the people working in that team. Sajjad Changezi, actually, I know him because we've been campaigning together to bring an end to the sufferings and killings of the Hazaras in Pakistan. The second member was actually my wife, who had already started when the COVID started actually, and then we were out of work. So she was actually willing to translate. And I remember those days when she started translating one of the stories of Inayat Balkhi on his mobile, and that made me actually to go and buy him a laptop so that he should be able to do this professionally. And when I again actually contacted Hassan Raza Changezi to see this is something that we are doing, and I will actually volunteer to do some of the translation and then to do a bit of coordination with the team. And then actually it started when I had to talk to Mr. Farman, because he initially started this project, but somehow there was a bit of delay in getting things done. So I just put into it and then tried my best to get this done and bring it to the stage that we are standing on. And I congratulate all my team, all my friends, including Hassan Raza Changezi, my friends and my colleagues in Bolaq Analysts Network and Parties Association for organizing this event. Thank you very much. I hope I have answered the question.
Many thanks, Mr. Balkhi. In the end, on behalf of Bolaq Analysts Network and Khatib Cultural Association, we would like to present this gift to each of you and thank you for joining us. همونطوری که مارتین لوتر کینگ گفته، یایی که با هم زندگی بکنیم یا که مثل احمق‌ها هلاک شویم. بازم تشکر از توجه و حوصله‌مندی شما. وقتی خوب و خوش داشته باشید. در حال حاضر ما یک وقفه نان چاشت داریم. بعد از نان چاشت برنامه انشالله ادامه پیدا خواهد کرد. موفق باشین انشالله.
Thank you very much to the panelists as well as the moderator, and thank you to you guys online. But on behalf of Khatib Cultural Association, we would I'm going to call Chairwoman Sabrina Mirzad up to formally give a present to the lead translators of this book.
از طرف انجمن کاتب برای دو عزیزی که در ترجمه کتاب کمک‌های بسیار زیادی را کردن تشکری می‌کنیم. گرچه قدردانی از محبت‌های شما و احساس قلبی را بیان کردن با هیچ چیز سنجیده نمیشه، ولی با همه وجود به رسم یاد بود هدایایی را از طرف انجمن برای بانو زهرا شاه و جناب سجاد حسین چنگیزی در نظر گرفتیم. به افتخارشان لطفا. تشکر باز هم.
Yeah, so on behalf of Khatib, Chairwoman Sabrina just wants to give these two presents to the co-leaders or co-lead translators. Yeah, and we recognize that it's not as much as a thank that corresponds to the work that they did, but it's the least that we can do, obviously, to just symbolize the gesture of our gratitude for them. Thank you. All right, thank you. That was all. Now we have lunch. We realized that it is a bit over time. I think we're 20 minutes to half an hour over time. But lunch is served now behind our sandwiches. And then if you can be back, then we're going to start again at 14:30, so 2:30, so half an hour. But yeah, I will let you know beforehand. So enjoy lunch, and thank you so far for this fruitful session.